Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
You got some pretty interesting developments going on up there in the Yukon. Let's start with the mine at Keno Hills. What's happening?
So, Stu, just recently we completed a pre-feasibility study looking to move the Keno Hill Silver District back to production. Mm-hmm. So Keno Hill was originally discovered way back in the early 1900s, mined a couple 100 million ounces of silver between early 1900s and 1980. And the average grade of production was in excess of 1,400 grams per ton silver. So on a global scale, the district is notable at best, and or at least, and represents a huge opportunity for Canada to enter the silver business and potentially in competition with other major silver producers in the world. So it's a standalone district, and through all the work we've done there, we're moving it back towards production.
So what happened between 1980 and now? Because there were some tremendous changes in the sort of the mining environment in the Yukon, not just Keno Hills, but throughout. Was that one of the factors that brought production to a standstill?
The major factor that brought production to a standstill at Keno Hill were the increasing environmental regulations, and properly so. Mm-hmm. The Keno Hill was developed early, did not have the regulatory control that mining companies and mining areas have on them presently, and they ended up having to shut down operations in the district because they couldn't keep up with the environmental controls and the facilities that were necessary, the capital that was necessary to come into compliance with the evolving regulations. So that was a big factor in shutdown of the district, and it stayed dormant, in fact, until we came along in 2006, and were able to come to an arrangement with the federal government of Canada to both clean up the district on behalf of the taxpayers and also move the district back to production.
Yeah, because I think that one of the questions that anybody who will be watching this interview will have is, well, was it mined out, or was it a series of other factors? If it wasn't mined out, well, then what are we learning now about where we can go forward?
So Keno Hill was, 30 to 40 mines in production. The district itself is 25, 30 kilometers long. It's, 15, 20 kilometers wide. It's a very large district. It's not a single, mining operation that some people might have in their mines. And as a result of that, there was a fair amount of ore, high-grade silver ore, that cropped out on the surface. And the old timers essentially moved from one area where an ore body cropped out to the next in sort of a beads on a string type of a fashion. And none of those mines were mined any deeper than generally 100 to 200 meters. The deepest mine in the district is 300 meters. So in today's world, that is relatively shallow. And no comprehensive geological picture was put together in the district.
Is that because they just didn't have the technology?
It was primarily because the district was divided up into, with a lot of different companies, 10, 12, 15 companies working in the district that didn't necessarily share information one with the other.
So have you brought all of this together as one single project now?
Yeah, I mean, the package that we now own was the former United Keno Hill Mines, and as Clint alluded to, it was at that time that all of these different mines and projects all came together under one corporate structure, which was United Keno Hill. So when we bought the assets in 2006, it was an auction process by the Government of Canada. We were one of about a dozen companies that bid on the assets, and Alexco has a unique business model where we're not only mine explorers, developers, operators, but we also have an environmental remediation services business. So it's really that expertise of we're miners, but we're also I think very skilled at environmental remediation. So it's bringing those two skills together that we were the successful purchasers of this district. And yeah, so we own the entire district, all the claims is one asset, and then we also are moving steadily towards putting a final closure plan together that we're the sole source contractor on behalf of Canada to implement.
So this puts you in a unique position that you're able to meet the environmental sort of regulatory standards that need to be met now. So you already have that ability, plus you're then able to move forward from a geological perspective because of your background.
That's correct.
So so let's come back to where are we at right now as far as what you've discovered and what you're looking at moving forward here in the next quarter or two in 2019.
Yeah, so we have just completed a pre-feasibility study, as I mentioned earlier. That study contemplates the mining of about 30 million ounces of silver from 4 mines in the district, but taking into account that about 90% of that production, which totals about 1.2 million tons over 8+ years, 90% of that production comes from a couple of mines that we have discovered since about 2013. So the project is one that will produce 4 million ounces of silver per year, plus a significant amount of lead and zinc. We produce 2 concentrates. The concentrates are shipped, through Alaska and or go on the water, in Alaska. And it's our intention to move forward and put this district back into production.
So you're close to greenlighting this project then, are you?
We're like every other mining company. We require a lot of regulatory authorizations. We are lacking one final authorization that we expect to receive in the 3rd quarter of this year. Once we have that, we will make a production decision. But prior to that, we have enough confidence that we're moving forward with a lot of the capital work that's required to move the district back to production.
For anybody who is looking at investing in mining properties in the Yukon, one of the questions, of course, is what's your relationship with Indigenous nations in the area? Have you been able to have all of that in place? And because it becomes an important component. Sounds to me like you're there, but let's just touch on that.
Yeah, you're right about that, Stu. I mean, relationships not only within the community, the First Nations, it's critical. We operate within the traditional territory of the First Nation of Natsunaik-Dun, mainly based out of the community of Mayo, which is about 40 kilometers from our project. We've had a great relationship really since day one. We have in place what we call a cooperation benefits agreement with NND, and that outlines a number of opportunities that we can bring: scholarships. We contribute to legacy funds. There's contracting opportunities, and a lot of the kind of normal things that you would see in these modern benefits agreements.
Right.
And there's a lot of opportunity, and they've been really great partners. On the other hand, they also have the opportunity to comment and look at all of our permits and authorizations and bring their perspective as well. So, yeah, you're right, it's a very important.
So one other component, of course, everybody asks about is, well, what's the infrastructure to be able to move product from there to market ultimately? The fact that you're close to Mayo suggests that there's already a pretty good transportation infrastructure in place.
Yeah, I mean, this district has been in operation for decades. So, I mean, it's an all-weather, year-round road. We're on the Yukon power grid, so we don't have to, generate our own power.
Right. And they did that recent upgrade at Mayo with the run-of-river or the bypass to add in extra power generation.
That's right. Several years ago, it's called the Mayo B, and they added another 10 megawatts of power to the grid.
Which is important because you want to have access to that kind of power.
That's right. Yeah. So for a project in the north, I would think we've got as good of infrastructure as any northern project.
Wow. So it's pretty exciting. So that's Keno Hills. But let's also talk about the environmental consulting management side of your business. Where are we at there?
So, I mean, historically, this business is one that Brad and I were running prior to forming Alexco, actually. And we were selected, I think, as the preferred purchaser of the Keno Hill district, the silver district, because of our background and expertise and demonstrated success in the reclamation business in the north. So when we acquired Keno Hill, we were we were automatically in the reclamation business because that was the commitment to the federal government of Canada. But we also recognized that there was a lot of opportunity in the sector, in the mining sector generally, for people with expertise in late-stage mine operations and mine reclamation and closure, up to and including, trying to advise people on how to minimize long-term liabilities associated with orphaned or abandoned mine sites. So the business started from there, and it has grown up over the last 8 or 10 years. Last year, top line revenues were $20 million. It'll be more than that in 2019. And we're able to hold on to 20-30% gross margins.
In other words, you're making money.
Yeah, so it has expanded, from Canada into the United States. We do a lot of work in North America and some international work also.
Well, I think that's an important factor, that you're not just one stream of revenue. You have money. You're going to be in this business of developing all aspects of your business for a period of time because you've got those reserves.
You're right. I mean, it's a unique, I guess, model compared to most junior resource companies out there. I mean, most companies don't have revenue, but yeah, we've got a strong subsidiary business and continues to grow and provides opportunities and provides other projects that other companies might not look at because we are comfortable with that, managing some of those environmental liabilities. So it really does open up opportunities that others really won't look at.
And so you're in a pretty good position.
We think so.
Yeah. Now, of course, I know that between now and when you are up to production, you'd like to see the price of silver improve, but that's something that's beyond your control. The first thing you need to do is establish that there's an appropriate resource there, and then what's it going to take to be able to extract it?
So, I mean, that's a really good question. Yeah. So, this most recent study that we have completed is one that we have deliberately sort of right-sized the project for Alexco. We're not a large company. So we've right-sized the project for Alexco. It's relatively low capital, high return, and it's economic in today's silver environment, which is sub $15 per ounce of silver. So that's the reason that that we're excited about this project. And it also means that, in the future, there's a lot of other silver resource, indicated resource beyond the reserves that we have on our books, which under a higher silver price environment, which everybody hopes is going to be a factor of the future, then a lot of that resource is going to come into reserve and will eventually be mined. So although we're starting with a 8 plus or minus year mine life, our intention is to move this district to production and keep it in production for the foreseeable future.
Well, yeah, it helps that you're in a historically rich zone. And really, it's a question of starting up production again and then seeing where things go. And as we all know, silver prices are cyclical like everything else.
Yeah, I think that one of the cornerstones of our success has been the fact that we've been very successful on the exploration side. So we started with virtually no reserves or resources in the district. Present time, we have more than 80 million ounces of indicated resource, including the reserves that are in the current mine plan, and another 20 plus million ounces of inferred resource. So you're looking at a district now that has, in total, in all categories, more than 100 million ounces of silver. That is no small, achievement in the silver business, and there's every indication that there will be more ore deposits to be found similar to the ones that we have found in the last few years here.
If you look over the history of this district, Keno Hill produced about 200 million ounces of silver over nearly 70 years. And in just a span of 6 to 7 years, our exploration group has put about 50% of that historic production back into resources. Our group was just recently awarded the Hud Spustis Award by AMBC, and that's it really is to the testament of the the exploration, the brain power, I guess, if you will, of our exploration team.
Yeah, and the quality of your work.
Absolutely.
Wow. So will you come back and give us an update when we move to the next stage?
We'll be more than happy to.
Well, that'd be fabulous.
And we'd hope the silver will be $20 when we get here.
Wouldn't that be nice? Thank you very much for coming
Thanks a
in.
lot.
Thank you very much.